Yeah, Honest Discussioner here. Going through some changes around here, so bear with me in the interim. But hope everybody's having a good time with their new year in January. This isn't necessarily going to be a very fun video, but one I think that's somewhat necessary. Thunderf00t made a response, and he made a response to someone who I consider a friend, or at least who I have a lot of respect for, and that would be Miss Cropped Kitten. Love her blog, posted in the underbar. Eventually, I kind of have to get off to work as soon as I'm done this, but yeah. So, in that, he said a bunch of things against, well, feminism in general, and specific responses to what little Miss Cropton had said. So, here is my response to that. First, let me say where I agree with Thunderf00t. I agree that we really shouldn't be engaging in censorship of really any kind. I have a grand total of 0 people blocked on my channel after 300 videos, numerous insults, and you know, nonsensical statements. I haven't really felt the need to block anyone, and I've only deleted spam comments, really, ones that were just advertisements for our other channels or videos that have nothing to do with the content of the actual video in question, and stuff like that. The other case that I would ban someone is if they were, you know, threatening violence, which I've never had to do. Came close one time, but that's about it. So, on that point, I would definitely agree with what Thunderf00t says. In fact, that's why I'm not a big fan of Atheism Plus, because I feel as though they kind of go in that direction of trying to monitor the conversation so much that it, you know, could possibly create an echo chamber. If you really hate what someone says, you either just don't listen to it, or you know, pwn them. You just give them facts, and you let other people, you know, read those and decide between who's actually right. Usually in a discussion with someone who's very irrational, or is making, for example, statements about how rape's actually okay or is blamed on the victim, you're not trying to convince that person that they're wrong, because they're going to be, you know, idiots. What you're doing is showing the difference between their speech and your speech, and who's actually being the reasonable one, and by, you know, cutting them out of the loop, you miss that opportunity, which is kind of the basis of discussion. But here's where Thunderf00t and I kind of part ways after that point. He makes the statement that YouTube is a public forum, and so it is almost morally wrong to block people or to delete their comments. He says it's basically like a public park. Well, no, if we're going to further the analogy to make it actually accurate, YouTube is a public park in which you are allowed to stake your own little corner out, and of which you are completely responsible for the content that goes on that channel. If there's things on that channel that happen that you don't want, you are allowed, by the terms of service, to censor that content. Now, I don't agree it should in most cases, but to kind of say that this is morally wrong, no. Some people don't want, you know, foul language on their video because they think kids might see it or something along those lines. Or maybe some people do want to create an echo chamber for whatever reason. Maybe some people are emotionally damaged to the point where if they see something that really bothers them, that they just can't deal with that. So I really disagree with Thunderf00t on that point. Now, he also says that the harassment policies on some of the, conferences that deal with feminism are, well, let's say, unnecessary. He believes, for example, that harassment is covered under the law, and therefore there's no need to have a law against, or a rule for the conference against harassment. For example, there's no reason to have a you know, you can't microwave babies rule. because that's already covered under the law, and by putting that law in there, or by putting that rule in there, makes you think that there's actually a problem, and he doesn't think there is a problem with feminism, or with harassment, I should say, at atheist conferences. Now, I'm not going to comment on that because A, I've only been to really one conference, and B, I'm not a woman, so I don't really, if there is a lot of harassment going on, I really wouldn't know it. But the idea that the law is going to, be okay, enough of a deterrent in a conference to stop harassment is, I'm not going to say ludicrous, but certainly false, for two reasons that I can tell. The first being that the law requires a certain high level of evidence for it to be applicable. For example, if I were to, or someone else were to go up to a woman who's in the corner and start harassing them, she can't really call the cops automatically because it's my word against hers. Even if I do that to 3 or 4 women at a conference, cops really can't do anything about it because, there's not an overwhelming amount of evidence for this harassment. Unless people are overhearing me doing it. And if I was pretty smart about it, well, that wouldn't happen. So if you have that rule in a conference, that means the conference operators or owners or managers or runners can make judgment calls and, watch out for a person and make sure that, basically make a judgment call on themselves and remove them from the situation because they have the rule right there that you can't do that. And the second reason, sometimes people jokingly harass people, or they make a joke out of the idea of harassment, and a lot of people find that unacceptable. But if they just say, "Oh, I'm just joking," it tends to diffuse the situation, even if they are actually seriously harassing the individual. So by putting that rule out there that you can't harass at a conference, that is going to put a clear message that no, this is not a subject that you can joke about. And therefore the idea that the law covers it and therefore it's unnecessary is, again, I'm going to say false. Would I actually recommend putting these rules out there? I can't say that I would recommend it or not recommend it. Again, I'm not a woman, and I've only been to one conference, and that was the one last year in DC. But still, do these people have a right to do that? Sure. And as Thunderf00t says, if what they're doing is actually wrong, if it is really unnecessary, then the marketplace of ideas thing that he puts out there does certainly count for something. And people will not go to that conference as much, and they will lose money, and people will go to more accepting conferences if it is in fact the case that they are being overly discriminatory or overly harsh in their rules of conduct. So that's my thoughts on that. Now, the further disagreement, I have a nuanced opinion of the whole elevator gate thing, but that's not really the whole purpose of this video. I can make another video if everyone really wants, but I'd rather not. It's over, in my opinion. But I really doubt that this whole thing is being generated only because of elevator gate, as he so implies. I don't know how prevalent harassment is at conferences and groups, but the idea that in a group where thousands of people are meeting that there wouldn't be a few guys that would step over the line, knowingly or unknowingly, seems, that seems like a very likely situation to me. It seems like that, I don't want to say normal because that implies that it would be acceptable, but it would certainly be a usual circumstance that people would have to deal with and should have to deal with when that comes about. So, yeah. To say that you are aware of, for example, every last instance of this, Thunderf00t, that you personally know that this elevator gate was the only thing that ever happened, you'd have to claim some sort of godlike status or be guilty of several illegal wiretapping offenses. So that's my thoughts on that. Have a nice day, everyone. Feel free to ridicule me and make fun of me and tell me how wrong I am, or point out that my hair's not done perfectly, I really need a haircut, and people are welcome to do whatever they want to me, but just remember, on other people's channels, their rules go. Have a nice day, honest discussioner,